Hi everyone, I'm going to walk through building a blog application in Django. This will only be 60 minutes, so I'll be moving quickly. Please feel free to pause. Also, please reach out with any errors that you notice or if you have any suggestions. My email address will be available. So before we get started, I wanted to quickly show what the final product looks like. So our user will be able to register an account and then log in. And once they log in, they'll be able to see this feed of blog entries and navigate to those on different pages. And to actually read more about a post, you can click through to read more, and that will give the full blog post there. And then if a user would like to create a post, they can go ahead and do that. And we have two fields here, so a blog title and then the actual text. And if you post that, we can see that posted directly to the feed, and then also pulled in the date and the author. So now with that, I think we're ready to get started on building this app. I've broken this video out into 14 sections, which you can see here. We'll work through each of these areas in the next 60 minutes. Just one other thing I wanted to note is that I do mention Git during this video. However, we will actually not be using it in the video. We'll be using Git in the follow-up video when we actually deploy this app to Heroku. Before we get started, we should make sure that we have created and activated the virtual environment. This will allow us to have an isolated Python environment that we can use for the project. So this command that I'm typing out right here will create a virtual environment named Django VENV for this Django project. And then once this finishes loading, I will activate it with source Django VENV bin activate, and then you'll be able to see that I'm now in the virtual environment here. Now, the one other thing I want to just quickly check is that we have Git installed. We'll be using Git later on when we deploy this app with Heroku. So now we can go ahead and install Django. I'll do that with the command pip install Django. And then we can just hold on here for a second and let this finish installing. Great. So now that we have Django installed, can just verify that it works correctly by checking the version. Looks like we have 2.1.7. And now we're ready to actually start the project. So before I do that, I'll just cd into the directory I've created, Django projects, and then we'll start the project called blog with this start project command. And then we'll go ahead and cd into blog. And then I can start the development server by running python manage py run server. And now we can open up a web browser and go to the link provided, localhost 8000, and see that we've successfully created our Django project. We can stop our development server by typing Control-C. I'll be doing that a lot throughout the project. So now we're ready to actually create the app within our project, which we'll call entries, and we'll do that with the start app command here. That will create this app entries. So now I'll open up my text editor. I'll be using Sublime Text for this project, and I'll load the project files in here so we can take a look at the structure for the project files and then also the app that we've created within the project. We'll start by going into the settings file, and we'll add the app that we've created, entries. Make sure to add a comma after that, and then we can look through the other default apps if we'd like, but we'll scroll down. Here's the default database that Django provides, SQLite, which we'll be using with this project. Now I'll go back to my terminal and run the command python manage.py migrate. And this command looks at the installed app settings in the project and creates any necessary database tables. We'll move into our models file within the application. This will outline the database layout for the app. And we'll only be creating one model. We'll call it entry. And it's represented by a class. That subclass is from Django DB models. We'll have this model will have 4 fields. The first one we'll call entry title. It'll be a car field, and with this field, it does require that you set a max length, which will make 50. The second one we'll call entry text, and we'll make this a text field, so there's a larger text area. And then this next one here we'll call entry date, and this will be a date time field. And with this one, I'm also going to include auto now add. So this will automatically take the date and time when the object is created. This last one we'll call entry author, and we'll use a foreign key to define a many-to-one relationship. So a foreign key will require 2 arguments. So first we'll have the class to which this model is related. So we'll import user from Django's authentication system here. And then we'll add that here as the first argument, and then the second one is the onDelete argument, which defines what happens when an object reference is deleted. So we'll use models.cascade, which would delete all of the posts associated with a user if that user was deleted from the system. So each of the fields we've created will be column headers within our entry table in the database. So now that we've done this, we can run the command make migrations. And then once we do that, we can run the command migrate to apply the updates to our database. Great, so we just created the table entry. If we make any other changes to models or create a new one, the way we would do it is make those changes, run make migrations to create migrations for the changes, and then to apply the changes to the database, we'd run the migrate command. So next we'll check out the automatically generated admin site that comes with Django projects. So we'll start up our development server, and then we can go to localhost 8000 /admin to get to the admin page, and we come to this login screen here. So what we'll have to do, we'll stop the development server, Control-C, and then we'll create a super user. So you can click through with your information here. So I'll keep my username, type in my email address, and then create a password, and then confirm that password. And that will successfully create the super user. So now we can go back to the admin site, and we'll just restart the development server here. And then can get back on here and then log in with the credentials that we just created. Great, so once we log in here, we'll be able to see the 2 default tables, so groups, which has nothing in it, but if we go into users, we can see the super user that we just created. However, we can't see the entry model. So to get that model displayed, we'll go back and go to the admin file to register the model. So first we'll import the model. So from.models, from the current directory, we'll import entry, and then admin.site.register that entry model. So now if we go back and we'll refresh the page here, and then we should see the entry model show up. So we can see that doesn't look right. Django just adds an S to the model. So we can make a quick fix here, create a meta class, and then define what the plural name is for the object. So we'll do that right here, and we can say entries, and then great, so we'll save that and then go on and refresh, and then, all right, that looks right. All right, so I'll click in, and I'm going to create a couple of just sample posts here to test out the functionality of the admin site. So we'll go ahead, and you can see the one author that we have to select from is the super user that we've created. So I'll just go ahead and I'll create a second post here. Perfect, and then save. So now we can see the entries, and it's not super intuitive what those are. So what we can do is create a method here to return a string representation of these objects. So I'll return I'll do an F string here, and I'm just going to return the entry title for the post. And that should make it a little easier to read when we're on the admin site. So go ahead, save this, go back to the admin site and refresh. And now we can see the titles that we've created for the post. Next, we'll move to the URLs file within the project. We can consider this the table of contents for the project. We see our admin site here. We're going to add a second path to the URL file within our entries app, which we have not yet created, but we'll create that right after here. So we'll just also import the include function, and then I'll go ahead and I'll create that file now for the URLs file for the entries app. All right, so I'm going to jump back to the project URLs file, and I'll copy that, and we can use this as a starting place for the app URLs file. So I'll remove anything related to the admin path. Also, we'll remove the include function. So with the path function, it requires two arguments, the root and then the view, and we have not yet created views. So I'll just leave this as something we need to complete, and then we can jump over to our views file, and we can get started on creating our first view for this application. We're going to build our first view using Django's built-in class generic view to show our list of entries. So we'll import list view. So this will basically help us show a page representing a list of objects. So we'll call this home view and inherit from list view here. So we need to pull in the data that we've defined in our models. So we'll go ahead and import from .models, import entry, and then we've set that up. The one other thing that we'll define here as well is the template name. Otherwise, it'll be set to a default, but we'll go ahead and make it index.html as the template that we'll be using. So now we've finished our view, we can go back and update our URL here for the app. So we'll import the view we created, home view, and then we'll go ahead and first create the root, which home / and then we'll add in our view here. So we'll do home view.asView. And then the third argument here will name the URL, and this will come in handy later when we're working with templates and being able to link to different pages. So now let's run the server, and I'll open up localhost here, and we can see the two URL patterns that we have available. So we have the admin page, and then we also have this home page that we just created. So let's go here, and we get this error, template does not exist at home /home. So we'll go ahead and we'll create that template now. We'll be using a Bootstrap template for this project. So I found a pretty nice blog template at Start Bootstrap, and before this video I've already downloaded the files and I've customized the ones that we'll be using slightly. So I'll go ahead and I'll include those files in the description of the video, but also feel free to download directly from the website. Great, so we'll add the Bootstrap files to our project now. On the left here we have our blog project. On the right we have our Bootstrap files. So within the entries directory, I'll create another directory called templates. And then within templates, I'll create a directory called entries, the name of our application. So it's entries, templates, entries. And then within entries, I'll add the index.html file. And then I'll go back to the main entries directory, and I'll create a static folder here. So create this, call it static, and then within static, I'll create one for entries, just like we did before. And then I'll load our CSS and JavaScript files here. So now once we do that, we can look at our text editor and we can see the flow. So both within templates and static, we have an entries directory, and then within that we have our actual files. And we do this to avoid any issues with Django when they're looking for these files. If we have files with the same name across multiple applications, that could cause a problem. So to prevent this, we create that additional directory. Now, feel free to look through these files and make any other customizations that you'd like. So I'll go ahead and I'll run the server so we can see what these updates look like right now. All right, so we'll go to localhost, and I forgot to add home in. All right, so we can see that it's working. However, the Bootstrap or the styling files are not yet connected. So first, let me go ahead. I'm going to remove home from the path just so we don't have to forget that anymore. We can just go right to localhost 8000 to see our homepage. Great. So now I'll go ahead and go back to the index.html file, and I'm going to connect the other static files. So the two things that we'll have to do here is one, we'll add in a load static tag at the top of this file, and we'll add that in, and then we'll go through and we'll have to update the path to the static files throughout this document here. So we'll add static, and remember the quotes here, and then close the bracket there, and then I'll just copy this and I'll go through and add it in a few more times. And one thing I forgot here is to add in the path to get there. So now these files are within entries, which we can see over here. So let me go ahead and just add that to the start. Otherwise, won't be able to connect, and this wouldn't work. So I'll just add entries to these last two down here as well. To make sure this loads correctly, what I'll do is just restart my development server here. So Control C, and then Python manage py run server, and then go ahead and load this here, and perfect. We can see that we now have the updated look and feel to the app. Now with template inheritance, it allows us to build a base template that contains the common element of our site. So I'm actually going to change this file from index.html to base.html, and hopefully this will save us some time too moving forward. So I'll create a new file called index.html, and what I'll do is I'm going to take the blog post and the pages from here and remove those. Everything else would be a common element that would show up on all pages. So I'll add those in here, and then jumping back to the base.html file, which is the parent template, we'll create these block tags that child templates can fill in with content. So block content and then end block, and then what we can do is go back to our index.html file here, and the two things we'll do is one, we'll add a tag at the top that extends from our base template. So we'll do extend entries / base.html, and then we'll go ahead and we'll add these tags in for the content that we'll be filling in. Now, just to make sure we did everything correctly, I'm going to go ahead and restart the development server and make sure that the styling is still looking right. So load the page. Cool, that looks right. All right, so now what we're going to do is load data into our template. So we'll set a context object name here that we'll be able to access within the template. If we don't do this, we can still access it with the default, which is object_list. But to make it a little easier, we'll use blog entries, and it's easier to read. And so with this post right here, what I'm going to do is set up a tag here to actually run a loop over this. So I'll do for entry in blog entries, which is the context object name we just created. And then we need to make sure to end the for loop. So that's a little different. But we'll go ahead and do end for down there. And then now we can go through and we can update each of these pieces of content here. So we can update the title. So we'll put these in double curly brackets because they're variables here. So to access the title for this object, we'll do entry.title and entry.text. I'm just going to double check that that's correct. So I'm going to jump to our models file. So it's actually entry title, entry text, entry date, and entry author. So I'll just jump back. So it should be entry.entry title, and then entry.entry text, and then all right. So I'll go down to where the date should be here, and we'll just do the same thing and update entry date, and then we'll do the same for the author below. Just copy the full thing here. So this should be entry.entry author. And then with this for loop, so this should be able to pick up all the posts that we have currently in our system. Just double checking that here, and then I'll go ahead and I'll save this, and we can restart our development server to see if this worked. So see the server's working, and then we'll refresh the page, and perfect. It looks like the content came through, so we can see title, text, date, and author. So I'm going to go back on the admin page, actually remove these couple of posts, and I've created a couple, or actually a few other sample posts that are a little longer, and so what I'm going to do is just copy and paste those in, and want to have some more content here so I can show a couple of filters. So we'll do one filter to truncate the text. And then later when we're working on the detail view, I'll do another one to show line breaks. So wanted to create these posts to be able to show those couple of things. Just going to add one more post in here. And then we can go back and we can see what these look like. So you can see that I'm a big fan of Acadia National Park. All right, so add in the post, and then enter author, save. Perfect. So now let's go back to the homepage and see what this looks like. So it looks pretty good, except down here we can see that we no longer have the spacing. It just groups all the text together. So we'll work on that in a little bit. So first I'm going to go back to our index.html file, and I'm going to add a filter. So we'll add a vertical bar or a pipe to note that it's a filter, and then we'll be using truncate characters, and I'm going to set that to 100. Also just going to change the title here and make it a little smaller. So now this should shorten the text that's shown on that main page to just 100 characters. So once this server restarts, we can check out what this looks like. Perfect. So now it's just limiting to 100 characters, and then the idea would be if someone wants to read more, they can click through and they can see the full post. And that's just what we'll be doing next. We'll be going into the detail view for the app. So I'll create a new view here. I'm going to call it entry view, and this will inherit detail view, another generic view here, so I'll have to import that. And then set up pretty similarly, so we'll set the model equal to our entry model, and then also going to define the template name here. So I'll do entries, just showing the path here, and then the actual file is called entry underscore detail.html. Now that we've created the view, we'll jump over to the URLs file and import that view and then create the path. So this path will be a little bit different. So we're going to add, make sure to add a comma here, and then with the path, we're going to add entry slash, and then we're going to use brackets to capture a value here. And we'll say int to capture it as an integer parameter, but what we're taking in is the primary key. And so when we create a model in Django, it automatically adds this primary key field. So each object has this primary key that we'll use here. And then we'll add the view, and then our name will be entry detail. So the template that we have to create will be entry underscore detail.html. So I'll go ahead and I'll create this here within the templates directory within the entries directory. And I'm going to go ahead and copy index.html and just paste that over as a starting place here. So in the detail view here, we'll go ahead and remove the for loop that's no longer needed. We can also remove a few other things here. We can remove this filter. Also can remove the line below, read more. So the other thing here is we didn't set a context object name. So we can go ahead and just use the default. So the default within this detail view is object to get this data. So we do object.entry title, entry text, entry date, and entry author to get that same information for each post. Great. And then, so I'm just going to jump over to the index.html file and going to update the link for the read more button. And so we'll update this for each post. So we'll set the URL to the entry detail page, and then we also need to pass in the primary key for each entry. So I'm just going to verify the name, it's entry-detail, and then right after the quote here, I'll pass in entry.pk, and then that should do it. So if we save this, and we can run the server to test this out. Great, so I'll open up my browser here, localhost 8000, and then if we click through, we can look up top and look at the URL for each of these. So you can see entry/4, so that's entry/5. So we can verify that this did in fact work. And just notice that we still have the pages at the bottom too. So let's go ahead and jump back to that, and there's no need to have this at the bottom for the detailed view of just one post. So we'll remove that. So I'm just going to do a couple of other changes here. First one, I'm going to add another filter on the detail view here for line breaks. So with that post, we're breaking out the 3 hikes and there are spaces in between. Now we'll be able to see those. And then I'm adding a link up here to bring us back to the home page. So each time we click into a link, we'll be able to click right back to the home page pretty easily. So now I'll save this, and I'll go ahead and I'll just restart my server here. So Control C and then Python manage py run server, just to make sure all changes went through. And then let's go to the home page, and actually wanted to click into the third post here. Perfect. So now we can see that we have those line breaks, and then we also can see the button back here, which takes us right back to the home page. So now we have the detailed view finished. So up next, we'll work on the create view. So for someone to actually be able to go and create their own entry on the page without having to use the admin site. So I'll call this create entry view, and then importing create view here. And then so this one will be a little bit different, but first we'll set model equal to entry. We'll create a template name here. So let's see, I'll call this create entry.html. And so we'll also have to define fields. So we'll include a title and text field here. There's no need to include date posted because that will be set to be added automatically. And then for the author, we'll have to work on that to make sure that we set that equal to the logged in user, which we'll work on shortly. So I'm going to go to the URLs file, import this view, add a comma, and then create the path, just like we've done above. So I'm going to make it create entry, and then we'll add the view, create entry view as view, and then we can go ahead and name this, let's see, we'll do create entry, and then we can save that, and then now we can go ahead and work on creating this file here. So we'll create, it'll be create_entry.html. And I just noticed I had a lot of tabs open, so I'm just going to clean this up a bit before we continue. So we'll just close out of all of these. And all right, so we have this file. I'm also going to, let's see, actually I'm going to open up the entry detail one, I think, instead. So I'll copy this over as a starting place for the create entry file. So I'm just going to clean this up a bit, actually remove a lot of these lines. So I'm still going to have this form be within this card. So actually what I'll end up doing is I'll create a card header here, and then within the card body I'll have the actual form that people will use to post. So let's call this create blog post, and then let's see, so I think we'll just remove this, and then we can make this section the body. So I'll create a form section here. So let me just remove this, and then so what we'll have to do is we'll create this form section. We'll set the method equal to post, and then there are a few things that we'll have to include in this section. This first one is it's called a CSRF token, cross-site request forgeries token, and this adds additional security and helps protect your website. And so we have to include this within the form here, and then the next thing will be the actual form. So we can access that very simply with but just by putting form here. And then the last thing is the button here. So just going to clean this up a bit. So we'll get rid of that line, and then we'll add our button in here. So button tags. So just started typing that and then tabbed over. So type we'll set to submit here. So I'm going to add a Bootstrap class here. Feel free to check out the website, and if you want to customize the type of button. but I'll keep it with this, and then I'm going to call that button post entry. So now that we've done that, I'm going to start the server, and then we can refresh our page, go to create entry, and all right, so now we get an error. So it's saying unknown fields, text title. All right, so let's jump back to our views file here, and all right, okay. So I did text or title and text, so it should be entry title and then entry text. So let me save that, and that should work. So just restart our server, and then we'll refresh this page. Perfect. So that works. It doesn't look very good, but it works. So one quick change we can do is I'll go back to the form, and then we can do .asp, and this puts the form in paragraph tags. There we go. So that looks better now. And all right, so I'll just create this sample post here and post entry. And all right, so we're getting another error, and this is all right. So this is an error due to author ID. So let's go ahead and let's fix this right now. Now, to account for the author when the post is created, we have to override the form valid method here. So we'll do this takes in self and form, and we'll set so form instance entry should be underscore author equal to the logged in user. So we'll do self.request.user. So once we've done this, we can return the form valid method. So now we're setting the author equal to the logged in user, and we can make sure we did that correctly. No issues on our server. So we'll restart this, create a title, some data here, and we'll see if this works. All right, so our error is provide a URL or define a get absolute URL method. All right, so the way we'll go around this one, we'll go to our URLs file, and within this we can define a success URL. So I'll set this to the home page, and also I'll save that and restart the server. So let's refresh this, and all right, this should work. All right, testing 1 2 3, test, and scroll down. Perfect. So now that works. So the next thing I'll do is update the order of the posts. So we can do that by going back to our views.py file, and right here it's called ordering. So I'll type that in, and then we'll set that equal to the entry date. Just double check. So it's entry underscore date is what we defined. So I'll add that in there, and so I'm adding that negative sign out in front, so it's sorting this by descending order. So the most recent post will be at the top, and it looks like we're getting an error here, so we can check this out. It says name entry date is not defined. All right, so let's go back. All right, it looks like we're missing the quotes here, so we'll add those quotes in, and then we can save the file and restart it, and this should work. So if we reload the page, and now you can see that our most recent post is showing up at the top. Next, we'll add pagination to the list view. So we can do that on this next line here. Do this, it's paginate by, and we can set that equal to the number of posts that we want to see on each page. So for this, I'll set it equal to 3. And then just gonna double check that my server's still running, and then we'll load this page, and perfect. So we can see we're seeing 3 posts here, and we'll get those links to work in a minute here. So it just types in question mark page equals, and that lets us go to the different pages, but let's get it so we can have those links at the bottom working. So I'll create a conditional tag at the top here. So this will be an if statement, and so if is paginated, and we have these context variables available to us. So we have is paginated, also page object, which we'll use here. So right down below here, we'll set another conditional. So if this page object has a previous page, then we'll show the previous page button. And one thing that I'm missing here, I need to also end the if statements, just like we did with the for statements. So I'll end that one. And then I'm going to copy that down here, and instead of has previous, it'll be has next. So if this page has a next page, then we'll show the next page button, and we'll do the same thing. We'll end that if statement, and then also I need to end the if statement for the original one that we did at the top. And I'll save that, and now that we have the conditionals in place, we can add the links for the previous page button and the next page. So we'll set it up in the same type of structure. So question mark page equals, and then I'm doing double brackets here because this is a variable. So I'm just going to copy that in, and we'll set this equal to the previous page number. So it'll be page underscore object dot previous page number, and I'll just copy the same link, and we can do the same thing below for the next page. So I'll just add that right in there, except instead of previous page, this will be next page, and save that. And then I'll go back and restart my server to make sure those changes are in place. So now I'll scroll down here, and we can see we just had the next page and then just the previous page, and both of those seem to be working. Right now, the only way for someone to log into this app is through the admin dashboard, and users won't have access to that. So let's go ahead, and next we'll create a way for users to register, log in, and log out on their own. So I'll start by creating a new app within our blog project. So I'll run this start app command, and I'll call it users. And we can see that the app was created over in Sublime Text, so the same type of structure as our entries app. So we'll go ahead and go to our urls.py file for the project, considered our table of contents, and now we need to map a path to the users app. So we'll do the include function again and to users.urls. So now we just need to create that URLs file within our users app. But before we do that, let's add the users app to the list of installed apps here. So users, and make sure to remember the comma there. And I'll save that and close out. So let's create the URLs file now within the users app. So we'll call this urls.py, and I'm going to, I'll go back to the project URLs file, and I'll just copy this as a starting place once again, and can remove include. I'll also remove the admin path, the path to the entries page, and so now we can create the path to our view. So the first argument here will be the root, and then this next one will be the view, and I'm going to create a view called register, which we'll do next, and then we have an optional name, and I'll just call this register. So now I'll import from my current directory. I'll import the views, but now we actually need to go ahead and create that register view. We'll start by creating our register view. So this will be a function that takes in a single argument request, and then we're going to, for now, we'll just return using the built-in render shortcut that that's already been imported to return a response, which will be this template page that we'll go ahead and create in a minute here. But before we do that, we need to create the user registration form. So I'm going to create a new file, and call it forms.py. And this is within our users directory. So I'm going to import a few things at the top here. First one, from Django, import forms. Next one, going to import the user model that we've worked with before from the authentication system. And then the last one is the user creation form. And this is provided by Django, and it will help us handle the creation of our new users. So import user creation form. And then down here, I will go ahead and name this form. So I'll create a class and call this registration form, and that will inherit from user creation form. And then a user creation form comes with 3 fields. So we'll create this meta class, set it equal to the user model, and then the 3 fields that it comes with are username, password, and then a password confirmation. So we call those password 1, and then the password confirmation is password 2. So I'm also going to create another field here that's not provided by the user creation form. So create an email field, and so forms.email field, and then I'll add that to the list of fields here. So now we have username, email, password, and then a password confirmation. So once we're all set with that, we can save that, and then I'll go back to the views file, and I'll go ahead and import the form. So now that we have the form imported, we'll go within our function and we'll add a conditional to check if this is a post request. So we can do if request.method equals post. And if that's the case, then we'll create an instance of this form that has the request post data. So form equals registration form, and include the post data. And then else will just display the blank form. So we can do form equals registration form. Now we can use another conditional to actually validate the form data. So within here, we'll check, is this form data valid? And if it is, what we'll do is go ahead and save that information. So we'll actually create that user and save it to the database. Now the last thing we'll do here is create a context dictionary, and we'll include the name form that contains the value for this form that we've created above here. And once we create this, we can pass this in as the third argument so that we can actually access the form within our template. And our template here is register.html within our users directory. So we can go ahead and create this template next. So we'll do the same type of structure. So within users, we'll create a templates directory. And then within templates, we'll go ahead and create that users directory. And then right now we can create the register.html file and save this. Perfect. So now that we have that created, let's go to our entries app, and within templates here, what I'm going to do is copy the create entry file as a starting place. So I'll just copy this, and then collapse these, go back to our users app and paste that in. So this is showing that we can actually extend from the other app, and we're extending from the entries app here. And I'm just going to update the header and then update the button. And I'm actually going to keep everything else just as it is. And now let's run the server and we can see what this looks like. All right, so there are no errors. And now this path to get there would be, it'll be /users/register. And perfect, we can see this is our user creation form. So I'm going to create a user, email, and a password here. And then I'll click create an account. And all right, so we weren't redirected anywhere, and we'll get to that a little later, but let's go ahead and go to the admin page and we can check if that was created. And perfect, it looks like that worked well. So we were able to create the account and save it to the database. Now the next couple of items that we'll work on are the login and logout views. So what we can do is we'll start by going to the URLs file here within our users app, and I'll create a path login. And so what we'll do is actually import Django's default login and logout views. So we can do this from Django contrib.auth import views, and I'll import this as auth views, so there's not a conflict with the other views that we've already imported. So this will be auth views.login view as view. So this is a class-based view, and then we'll name this login. So once we create this, the default for Django would be to look for this template within a registration directory. But since we don't have that and we'd like to keep all of these together, let's specify where we want this template. So we'll save it within the users directory and we'll call it login.html. And so then we can create that new file and call it login.html. So this is within the same directory as our register.html file. And what I'll do is I'll copy this and paste this over as a starting place. And once again, we can just make a few adjustments. So instead of create an account, I'll say log into your account. And then, so we updated the header. And then the one other thing we'll need to update is the button. And then everything else with the form should stay the same. So let's save that and we'll start up our development server. So once we have this running, we can go to our website here, and the path is users/login this time. And perfect, so the form is loaded, and I'll log in with my credentials here, and we get this error. So this is saying that we were redirected to the a page account/profile. So what we can do is update this by going to our project settings file. And then at the bottom here, I'm going to add in a login redirect URL. So login_redirect_URL equals, and I'll set this to the blog's homepage. And I'll save that. And now let's once again try to log in. All right, so username, password, and then perfect. So now it redirects us to the homepage. So now I'll go back to the URLs file here and I'll do the same thing for the logout view. So I'll create the path here, go to logout, so it would be user/logout, and then add the view in, so it's authviews.logoutView as view. And then we'll call the name of this logout. So once again here, we'll go ahead and specify the template name. So we'll do this within the users directory as well, and I'll call this logout.html. So I'll create that file, logout.html, and then I'm going to go to my login.html file. I'll copy this and use this as a starting place. So looking here, this is actually a little different. So I'm just going to remove most of that there. And instead, what I'll do is create a message that lets the user know that they have logged out. We no longer need a form for this view. So I'll say you have successfully logged out, and then creating a link here. So I'll link them back to the login page. So I'll just add the text there. So you've successfully logged out, and you can log back in here and have that link to the login page. Perfect. So now let's go back to the base template within our entries app. And so where it says logout on our menu, I'm going to go ahead and update that link so we can test this out. So I'll set that URL equal to logout and save this, and then we can go ahead and restart the server and test out this functionality. All right, so I'll log back in, and then if I click on log out, all right, so we're getting an error here. All right, so it said the template does not exist, and I think I noticed what it was. All right, so instead of a slash here, I did a period, so I'll just go ahead and fix that. And now if we refresh this, perfect. So this is the page that we want to see, and if we click on that link, it'll bring us back to the login page. So one of the last things here that we'll do is make it so only users that have logged in can actually access these pages. So the way we would do it with a function-based view is we could add login required decorators. However, with class-based views, it's a little different. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and import so Django contrib.auth.mixins, and it's something called a login required mixin. And what we can do is we can add this to each of the views below, and we just need to make sure that we're adding it as the first item in the inheritance list for each of these classes. So we'll add that login required mixin, and then I'll go ahead and go to my settings page, and we need to have a redirect. So if someone tries to access a page that they don't have access to, we'll send them to the login page. So that's login_URL. And now let's go ahead and we can see, all right, we just tried to access the home page, and we can see in the URL that it redirected us to this login page. So now that we've completed most of the functionality for this app, what I'll do is go back to our base.html file, and I'm going to update the links for the menu items. So I'll start off by updating the link for the Post Now button there. So that would send someone to the create entry page. And then I'll also update the blog header here to bring someone back to our homepage if they click on that. And then scrolling down here, I'm going to update, this is in our sidebar, so I'll update to show the logged in user's username and then also their email. And so when someone logs in, they should be able to see that on the right. They'll also validate that they've successfully logged in with the correct credentials. So now we can go ahead and we can test this out. All right, so I'm getting an error here, and I'm sure it's just a typo. So instead of a hyphen, that should be an underscore. Perfect. So now this works. So those links should all be updated, and we can see our logged in information over here. So I'm logged in with that username and that email, and I'm just going to make one change to the margin of the logged out page. I want to create a little spacing on the top of that text. So I'm going to update the, so it's empty, so that's margin top, so that should work. And then if I load that, now we can see there's a little more spacing. That looks right. So actually the final item here will be going back to the views file in our users app to make sure that we're redirecting users when they do successfully create an account. So we can do that here, and what I'm going to do is take the username and the password from the post data that they've input. And so once we have this, we can verify those credentials with Authenticate. So we'll have to actually import that. So from Django's authentication, we'll import Authenticate, and also I'll import login here. So we'll verify that we'll verify these credentials, and then we'll also go ahead and log in the user. So Authenticate here and putting in the username and the password, and then I'll go ahead and log in that user. And then the last thing here is just make sure to redirect to the home page. And I forgot the shortcut up above. Make sure not to forget to put that in for redirect. So now we'll redirect them to the homepage of the blog. And so if we go back to our register page, now let's just create a new account to test out this functionality. So create a new username, and then password, and then we'll confirm our password. Perfect. So now this redirects us, and we can also verify that worked by getting our logged in information over on the right here.